Hello and welcome to this new episode of Bootstrapping Your Dreams Show. I'm your host Manoj Agarwal, and today we'll be talking with Steve Adams. So Steve is the CEO of Tiger Neuroscience. He has cracked scientifically proven way to protect your health and productivity without prescription drugs or leaving your home. He has simplified the peak performance formula: performance equals skill minus interference. His company, Tiger Neuro, helps eliminate interference. Neurofeedback was born at NASA in the 60s, now used by Silicon Valley executives, Navy SEALs, NFL quarterbacks, and other peak performers. And Steve is going to tell us all about this new program that he's launching. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you. Welcome, Anush. Thanks for having me on your show.
Awesome. So I'm very intrigued about this neuroscience and how you got into it, because I know you come from a very different background. So before we get into the good stuff, can you help us understand how you got into it? From where you were, what kind of work you were doing earlier, and what led you to this new type of work that you're doing now?
Absolutely. Well, I originally, when I came out of university, I went into a banking career, and I was a corporate banker for 14 years, and very high pressure job. And I brought, an intensity to that. And then it resulted in me being a top salesman in a multi-billion-dollar bank. I left that in my early 30s. There was a period where I did both for a while. That's why the math doesn't add up. I left and started my own company, and we started a small, a single location franchise pet superstore like PetSmart, only it was called Pet Supplies Plus.
Okay.
And that grew into a chain of 44, 45 stores over 21 years. And I had bought into a lot of the psychological, things that you need to do, the mindset of peak performance. But the thing that I missed, and I think a lot of people do, that I know they do because we work with them, is I forgot about the physiology of performance.
Yeah.
And I found myself in my early 50s burned out and numb. And we had paid an NFL quarterback to be our spokesman for our company. And he told me about his brain coach. And so I went to that guy and found out about this and did the training and had my son do the training. And it was very transformative in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what led to the start of Tiger Neuroscience. I actually realized I needed to make a change. So I sold to my partners, took a year off and recovered, and then started Tiger.
Awesome. So just to dive a little bit deeper into it. So when you said, you were burned out, can you tell me a little bit about what you were going through and what kind of transformation this brain training provided you?
Well, fundamentally at my core, I was always in fight or flight response because, we had 800 employees. I was going to an airport every week, traveling. So my body clock was off, chronically. And so, I felt numb. I felt exhausted. I felt overwhelmed by everything. And all it was because my autonomic nervous system, which is the system in your central nervous system that kind of manages your recovery and your stress, because that was out of balance for probably 25 years. Mm-hmm. The cumulative effect on that was I was losing the ability to adapt to what was happening to me in life, and I was kind of shutting down, and that's burnout. I actually, went through a assessment and found out I was clinically. So that's where I was, and I took some time off, and I didn't really need to take the time off. I just did. But through the things that we teach in our company now, which we can go into as a follow-up question in a minute, I was able to restore my vigor and my energy and my sleep and everything, and really get back to the guy that I was, 5 or 10 years earlier. And now I'm 56 and I'm running half marathons.
Awesome. That's great. So how long did that transformation period was? Like, how long did it take for you to go from being burned out to, feeling whole again?
Well, for me, I was a pretty bad case. It took about 18 months for me, but I started feeling better within the first month.
Awesome.
The things that came back right away were my sleep improved. Now, it went from horrible to not so horrible. Okay. Because when you get into your mid 50s, the research all is very clear that beyond 55, it's a downhill spiral in your sleep. And so my company, what we try to do is just stop that. But anyway, my sleep got better right away. And I had this low grade anxiety, which is not from having clinical anxiety. It was more from the stress. That went away in about 2 months. And, within 4 or 5 months, I started to feel my vigor again.
That's awesome. So it's very interesting to note that, obviously I completely trust the power of mind, and it's just really good to see some real world use cases where, instead of resorting to antidepressants and, like extreme measures that medical science generally falls back on. Instead of that, using some of these other methods and leveraging the power of your own mind, right?
Right. There's 2 core things that we attack that enable you to either bypass prescription meds or at least reduce your need for them. And I want everybody to hear, we're not anti-medication. Medication does a lot of wonderful things. But for a lot of people like us, what we do, I think in my opinion, is much better than running to the doctor for a pill. And so 2 things. One, I said earlier, I alluded to it, and that is the autonomic nervous system. There's something called sympathetic, which is the stress side, and then the parasympathetic, which is the recovery. So the stress side is the gas pedal, the recovery side is the brake. And when and there are specific ways that you can bring that back into balance. And what we do with our clients actually is we teach them, once they start to go through our program, they go, wow, I didn't know I could feel like this, like so calm and more centered and relaxed. So now when they notice that they're not that anymore, that's their autonomic nervous system out of balance. And so we teach them how to bring it back so they can regulate themselves without Tiger in the future. That's one thing. Second thing is your brain runs on electricity and chemicals, but the electrical side gets dysregulated. And when that happens, that dysregulation is correlated with things like anxiety and depression and PTSD. There's signatures for that. And so the other aspect of our training is we actually correct that electrical dysregulation. So we get at the root of why the problem is occurring, instead of, that's a permanent fix versus a drug, which is a every 24-hour fix.
Yeah. Awesome. So now, one question that comes to mind is like, there are things where you can, let's say, if you want to lose some weight, you can, go through some diet. If you want to build some muscle, you can go through, a training regime. But the thing is, you have to keep up that whole process your entire life, right? Otherwise, you gain the weight back. You lose your muscular strength and whatnot. So in this process that you are describing, is this like a one-time fix, or is it something that you have to continuously do?
Very good question. On the brain side, that can be a one-time fix. There's the other half, though, the way that we correct the autonomic nervous system and help you self-regulate through life. That is primarily the breath work that we teach you, but it's also things like fitness, and we teach you to have a gratitude practice, have fitness, work on your sleep. Because when we work with people, we work on sleep, something called heart rate variability, which is the way you balance your autonomic nervous system, and then neurofeedback. We do all 3. Okay. So the breath work and the work that you do for your autonomic nervous system, that's the rest of your life. The brain part, no. Once you do that, you don't need to do it past 6 months. And some of our clients, though, will keep it and do it long term, like once a week, just kind of because they like how they feel after they do it, because it's like 30 minutes of, watching a video, and they have to do the breath work. And when they're done, they feel completely relaxed. So they'll keep going. But they're kind of looking for that last 1% as opposed to actually needing it. And we're very clear with them on that.
Sounds good. So it sounds like it takes some effort on your part to get that. So now, again, being a devil's advocate, some people may say, hey, I can take a couple of drinks and feel very, on top of the world. I can smoke some marijuana and I'll be good. what is the difference between those approaches and what
Sure.
you're suggesting?
Well, the most obvious and simple one is having a drink or smoking dope to get relaxed is not a good long-term strategy. So you're going to pay the price later for that. So like I said, the brain thing's not permanent, and after you do the brain thing, which is only about 30 minutes 3 times a week for a few months, okay? So it's not going to kill anybody to do that. But the breath work is 10 to 20 minutes a day broken up into different time periods. And, I always say to our clients, if you're not willing to do that, we can't help you. You can't help yourself. Yeah. It's not that hard. It's, Manoj, when I do it is when I drive.
Yeah, I see.
That's when I get most of it. I do it before bedtime every night, but anybody can do it. So it's not that hard.
That's great. And so I also want to give some sort of idea about what that feeling of relaxation is, because people who haven't experienced it I have gone through a lot of stress in my life, and I just used to think this is how life is. I just accepted the fact that it's not going to get any better. This is it, right? So how do you even convince somebody who are so sort of disillusioned? How will you describe that feeling and the possibility of attaining that feeling for anybody?
Yep. Well, the first thing we do is we do a baseline evaluation and an end of program evaluation, because I don't want to build a business off my clients' feelings, because those are very fleeting. So we give you objective data, beginning and end, and show the improvement, okay? Because a lot of people forget what they felt like. But initially, the thing that I noticed the most was a sense of profound calm that I had not felt for, I think, since I was in high school. And because, and we can do it right here, Manoj. We could do a little breathing exercise that any audience member could do this without ever paying me a dime, and I'd be happy to do that. So
let's do that.
So what we're going to do is we're going to breathe in through your nose for 3 seconds, and then we're going to breathe out through your mouth for 6.
Okay.
And the way you do that is you have to purse your lips when you breathe out, because otherwise it'll just come out too fast. What I want everybody to do, though, is put their right hand on their stomach. And when you breathe in through your nose, your stomach should push out, because you're clearing your stomach out of the way so your lungs can fill up. Okay.
Okay.
All right. And then when you breathe in, you're going to pull your stomach in and push the carbon dioxide out. Okay. So here we go. Let's do it. We're going to do 4.
Okay.
You ready? So here we go. Go 1, 2, 3. And don't breathe out yet. And then out through your mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3. Hold it. Out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3. Hold it. Breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Last time. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3. Hold it. Breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. What that does, that's not enough time to really get the impact.
I do feel some calm for sure.
Right. But what everyone should do is do this later and do it for about 5 minutes. And what that does, you can do 3 and 3. We teach our clients to do 3 and 3, 4 and 4, and 3 and 6, because 3 and 6 activates the recovery side, the parasympathetic. Okay. And if you're like you or me, if you're a go-getter, high performer type, that's the one you need to do more than anything, because we are naturally going to be over on the other side, gas pedal going wide open. And by doing that 3-6 pattern, you're going to pull back. Okay.
Cool. Awesome.
So that's just one thing we do. There's so much more we do, but I'm happy to share things.
Let's dive a little bit more. So you mentioned 2 things which I want to talk about: sleep and heart rate variability. So let's talk about sleep first. So what kind of effects, so let's step back here. I think sleep is highly misunderstood, because a lot of people, especially people who are trying to achieve something, they're pushing through, they just think sleep is optional, and they I have 24 hours, I'll just sleep 4 hours and get it done and push through it, and then the next night again, like, let's just sleep 4 hours. So what is that, do you think that's the right way to look at sleep, and what are your views on it?
I used to feel that way, and I paid a price for it, and my view doesn't matter. I've done the research. I got a book coming out in September. We don't have the title settled yet. I think it's going to be called The Zone. Okay. But I've done a lot of research for my book on this, and actually sleep actually is the number one most important task you should do every day. Because if you wanna accelerate your aging process, then don't sleep. Do the 4 hours, and you'll be 75 years old when you're 50. So, in terms of brevity, I don't want to go any further than that. So my view is very much that. And the guy that my friend who played in the NFL, he went to bed at 8:30 at night and got up at 6, and because it was that important. And the one thing that we teach in our company is, we don't say you got to be in bed 8, 9.5, 10 hours. What the National Sleep Foundation says is 8 hours of sleep opportunity. So 8 hours in bed. And if you do that, Dr. Panda, who wrote the book called Circadian Code, I'd encourage it to anyone. He's at the Salk Institute in San Diego. Dr. Panda said, if you get 8 hours in bed, you'll get about 6.5 hours on average. And that's plenty to be very healthy. There's just a lot of restorative processes that are going on that if you skip those, you could accelerate or increase the probability of memory loss, dementia, and nobody wants that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's for sure. So that's a very important point, which I obviously when you're in your younger years, sleep almost seems like a nuisance.
Yes.
Gets in the way. But yeah, I mean, I think the sleep quality affects your life quality quite a bit.
It does. And listen, we're entering an era. Peter Diamandis spoke on this at Singularity University a couple years ago. We're going to experience 100 years of change in the 2020s technologically. Yeah. And I mean, think about what's happened in the last 100. And to be able to be agile through that and adapt, you need to have two key core skills. One, the ability to learn new things rapidly and incorporate them into your business, into your skill set. And secondly, sustain elite performance. And if you're not sleeping well, you can't do either one of those.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right. So, and do avoid the alcohol part or the marijuana, because yeah, I mean, what do you have to say about that? Like, some people think that, if they sleep enough using those substances, it's the same.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, my understanding is CBD without is it THC? Yeah. Without the hive chemical is very good for sleep. So I wouldn't argue against that at all. And alcohol, what Dr. Panda says at the Salk Institute on sleep or on alcohol is have it before 6 p.m., which is going to crimp a lot of people's style. Yeah. But because to sleep well, you've actually got to sync two circadian rhythms, one in your brain and one in your digestive tract. And when you drink alcohol in the evening, you destroy that whole process. The body puts everything on hold to get rid of the alcohol. Nice. So it just depends on what you want to be.
Awesome. All right. And let's talk about heart rate variability, because I've been, I came into contact about this term a few months ago, and I've been doing some research, and it's a very, in my opinion, like not a lot of people understand what it is. And
right.
So can you share some idea about, first of all, what is it and how does it help us?
So one Harvard doctor said if there was one biomarker you would want to track, it would be heart rate variability, because 9 of the 10 leading causes of death in the United States are correlated with poor HRV. Okay, so let that sink in a minute.
9 out of 10?
Yep. Wow. The only one that's not correlated with are traffic accidents. So what heart rate variability is, the technical definition is the difference in the inner beat, the timing differences between the beats, okay? What that means to a layman practically is if you have poor HRV, it means that you have a brittle heart rate, meaning it's very rigid, meaning 60 beats per second means every 1 second there's a heartbeat and it doesn't flex. And so when life comes at that person, because stress and different things that we have to react to are not steady. They never are. They're always very flexible. And so if your heart is not flexible, the body can't be resilient. It can't adapt well. And that leads to anxiety, depression, and other mental health disorders, as well as future predictor of cardiovascular disease. Okay. So what we want is we actually want a heart rate that's very flexible, very variable. And when it is, that means it's flexible like a stretchy rubber band instead of like a brittle rubber band that snaps when there's stress. So we want that flexibility. Okay. Now, one of the things that drives that is breath work. Okay. Because over 75% of the electrical energy the brain generates the fuel for that comes from oxygen. Okay. So if you're a poor breather, your heart has to work harder to get the oxygen in the brain. And that doesn't do anything good for heart rate variability. So by doing the breath work, you're oxygenating the brain very well, calms the cardiovascular system down, and now you can build variability. And it's really interesting. Most people are such poor breathers. We're born breathing perfectly, but as we age, that goes away. We actually so our lungs, if you took the alveoli sacs on the inside and spread them out, they'd cover a tennis court.
I see.
But we only utilize about the size of a dinner table of our lungs. So let that analogy sink in there. So when you do that deep diaphragmatic breathing, you're using the whole tennis court.
Wow. That's amazing. Now, one more thing is like, a lot of people, as you said, like it's kind of hard to understand what are the core benefits of doing all this work. So can you share with us maybe a case study, maybe something, a real life example of where, maybe even we can use your example, where you were before you went through this process, and what kind of results, like objective results in terms of maybe your business, maybe your performance, like, so that people can understand what it is going to do for them in the real world?
Yep. Very good question. And I will use several people as I talk through this.
Okay.
And I can't guarantee you your business is going to do better because I'm not you're helping you with strategy or
no.
But, what I can tell you is if I take the people that have entered our program that didn't complete the work, if I take them out, we're over 95% success rate with people getting measurable objective results that we can see in the data and that they can translate into their life. So for instance, for me, I'm a type A plus, and very intense with what I do. My team around me told me I listened better, that I was calmer. What I noticed is that I could think through a problem better, sequence my thoughts better, sequence how I speak better. Those things came right away. The other thing that we're doing in its essence is we're actually training you to be able to focus your attention in on one thing for a long period of time. And that's what flow state is all about, and getting into the zone. And so our whole program is building the physiological, psychological, and the electrical foundation in the brain for you to get into flow states and to be in the zone. And when you can do that, the research says, McKinsey says 500% improvement in productivity. DARPA says you'll learn a new skill 490% faster.
Wow.
The University of Sydney says you'll improve your creative problem solving by 430%. That's real data. So I've experienced that personally. We worked with I can use his name because he's gone public with a testimonial for us. We worked with the Penn State University's men's basketball coach this last season.
Wow.
And Coach Chambers, brilliant basketball coach, but has struggled to get his program over the hump and make the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
And one of his challenges was he's very type A and loses his temper very easily. We put him through our program starting in August of last year, and we slowed him down just enough and caught him calm so that his brilliance as a basketball coach could take over. But it also, what it did was it lowered his interference in his players' minds.
Oh, I see.
And they went from, I think, like 9th or 10th in the Big Ten to like 4th or 5th this year, and they qualified for the NCAA tournament.
That's amazing.
And it was a great turnaround. And so that's one example. I won't get into the personal aspects. I'll let him tell that story to others who want to know. But he had some really great personal impact too. We have a guy in Minneapolis who is a professional copywriter, who says that he's writing the best copy he's ever written because his brain can focus longer and more effectively.
That's amazing.
And my son, he had severe ADHD, and we got that under control, and now he's a highly productive individual. He's actually one of our performance coaches.
Oh, nice. That's
yeah. So those are just three. I mean, we had an 8-year-old boy in Texas who was so anxious he would get under his desk and cry in my daughter's classroom.
Wow.
When he was presented with a challenge, and we put him through the program, and now he's getting gifted education. He's doing terrific. So we just had to get him calmed down.
Yeah. That's great. That's amazing. So now let's talk about, obviously we are going through some challenging times globally. What are some of the effects of this on the C-suite executives and people, as you put it, like A+ personalities who have huge goals or huge objectives they want to achieve?
Right.
What is going on? Like, why are we not able to get to where we want to get to?
I think it's multifaceted, Manoj, but one of them is people do not know how to manage stress well. And we've talked a lot about how to do that on this show right now. And so just that alone, if you can get a C-suite person doing the heart rate variability work on a daily basis, that compounds. That there's a cumulative effect on that. And that enables them to improve their resilience, their sense of calm, and now and that's all interference for them. And so by reducing that interference, the brilliance that they have that got them to the C-suite is now going to come out more clearly. Okay. So those are the big benefits: the ability to focus longer, the ability to have greater emotional control, improving the listening skills, greater resilience. Those are common to everyone. And then some people have other interference. Some people may have a slight mood disorder or anxiety. Maybe they're undiagnosed ADHD, or ADT, which is a new thing now. Any of those things, we can help them. And really all we're trying to do is make them fully who they are without the interference.
I see. So what will we say to people who want to achieve big goals, and they say, I'll be able to do this if only I get a Harvard education, if only I'm able to raise $10 million, if only, if only I can find a partner who can do all these things that I'm not good at. So how do these obstacles that we sort of build in our minds, they are related to the work that we are talking about?
Well, first of all, I had none of that, and I built $100 million company. So you don't need that. My dad was an auto factory worker at General Motors. I had no connections. I'm the first college graduate in my family. So that is someone who is blaming external circumstances instead of taking ownership of themselves. So our work now, we have developed, and I'm not, this isn't a sales pitch. I just want to share you what we're doing. We've developed an online education platform to help someone just like that. So, because as you know, Manoj, success is multifaceted. What we've been talking about so far is your physiology, okay? Taking care of your body so that you've got the foundation and the fuel and the energy to pursue your goals with passion and sustain it. Yeah. But you also, obviously, you got to have expertise in a domain area where you want to build your business. You got to develop that. So you got to develop a growth mindset. You got to develop an internal locus of control, and you got to develop a lifelong learning habit. You got to manage distractions. There's so many things you have to do. And so we have a course called Get Into the Zone, and it's 3 8-week modules, and we take you through all those kinds of things. And it's very inexpensive. because we want it to be. We want people to get into it and then apply it. And whether they ever do any of our other programs or not, they're going to be much better positioned then to take that next step. And we've also got another intensive program that we're launching at the end of July, all helping people who want to start that dream and take off with it.
That's amazing. And so is there a way, you mentioned heart rate variability quite a few times. It seems like it's a very important indicator. Is there a way people can start to capture this data, or like, how do you even figure out what your heart rate variability is?
So if they work with us, what we do is we buy the person an Oura ring.
Okay.
And our coaches have the data fed to our corporate dashboard. We're a partner with Oura. And what we do is there's a lot to that. You can look at a number on an Oura ring, but if you don't know how to interpret it, all the other data around it, you really don't know how to improve it. And so that's what our folks do is we teach you how to live a data-driven life from a health standpoint, how to read your data every day and then modulate your intensity based on the data that you see, and then set you free. Like, we set you up so you don't need us anymore. That's our whole goal. But that's one. I mean, the reason I like Oura, it's very accurate, especially their sleep data is extremely accurate. There are a myriad of HRV apps and devices out there that you can get. I would encourage people to get it. What I will tell you though is the impact will be limited if you don't get somebody to help you learn how to do some of this stuff. But and it's a great investment of time, because 4 to 6 months of learning how to do HRV properly will actually have a tremendous effect on the rest of your life. Awesome. For me, my heart rate variability is like 40% better than 3 years ago. And so the doctor that I worked with says, he said, you have literally transformed the next 30 years of your life from where you were headed.
Amazing.
Yeah. And everyone has the power to do that.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Steve, for joining me today and getting all this information. Now, I'm sure a lot of people may be interested in what you're doing, and they may want to get in touch with you. So how do they reach out to you? How can they take advantage of these facilities?
Well, I'll give them 2 ways. You can email me directly. We're small enough, I'll talk to anybody. And okay. So it's S.Adams, so SADAMS at tigerneuro.com. And then otherwise, you can go to tigerneuro.com, and there's a free consult button on there. You just push that, and you'll get to talk to me or one of our coaches. And all we do is educate. There's no hard selling. If you're interested in one of the courses, just navigate to the pricing page and check on the online courses, and you can find it there.
Amazing. We'll add those links, and if you want, we can add your email address to the show notes as well.
Sure, no problem. It's all okay. Right. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing this knowledge. I'm sure a lot of people will get to learn something new listening to this, and the breathing exercises that you shared with us. I think that'll be beneficial. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Manoj.
Thanks.